Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by Nothing Beast. So you're the manager of my spare time now? I was employed at a small market radio station for many years a while back. I loved the actual work, but the people there were just terrible. Particularly the manager in this story. She spent 7 years pretending we were friends, working up from sales to sales manager and eventually station manager. And then one day she decided to make my job a completely miserable experience, holding station meetings without me, creating record sessions without putting them on my schedule, ignoring my reports of tech issues so things never got fixed. It was ridiculous how little managing she actually did. Basically, there had been a buildup of her crap leading up to the story, and this was the first real time I put my foot down. Since we were a small staff and I was the employee with the most years, I had a lot of responsibilities. The easiest way of describing my job was I did everything except sell ads. Every day had the same main responsibilities, but minor changes kept each day different. Punch in at 8 a.m. and co-host the final hour of the morning show, answer phones in the door all day, record ads and clients, edit shows, do the afternoon broadcast 1 to 5 p.m., pre-record the evening news block to air after I leave for the day. One day, the morning show host decided we needed to talk about America's Got Talent, but by the time he had this great idea, auditions were already 3 shows in. I had never watched the show before because I absolutely hated reality TV, but I thought, what could it hurt? And I went home that night to watch the week 4 episode. While it was entertaining, it was also an overly padded waste of time. But I did my homework and did the show the next morning and hyped it up like it was the greatest thing ever. Next week, I forgot to watch. I go into work and the morning show host asks what I thought and I panic for a second before telling him I didn't see it. Since I had about 20 minutes of morning news before I was live, I ran to my office and checked YouTube for a highlight reel. And there it was, an hour-long TV show whittled down to a 15-minute video. Perfect! When it was done, I moved to the broadcast studio and did a great recap of last night's episode. Even the host, who watched the entire show, thought I did a great job keeping up with him. 6th episode came around and this time I remembered it was on. But since I knew NBC was going to post the highlights for me tomorrow, I opted to spend my free time on something that I actually wanted to do. Next morning, I go straight to the highlight reel and get caught up on every act that was important enough to talk about. Again, the show host thought I did a great job, but my manager didn't think it was good enough. She called me into her office to ask why I was purposely ignoring requests to watch the show. I asked her, what difference does it make whether I watch the hour-long broadcast, full of commercials and long-winded filler to stretch the runtime, versus watching the highlight reel that has every high point and does the same job in 15 minutes. She said it makes a difference and wouldn't elaborate. She was always pulling that, I'm right and I don't have to tell you why crap. She then pointed out that next week was when judges began cutting acts, and there was going to be episodes every Tuesday and Wednesday for the rest of the broadcast, and watching it was mandatory. How long are these episodes? I asked her. They say they're an hour each. And that's when I decided to put an end to this BS once and for all. So that's 2 hours of show prep each week. Do I mark that down on my timesheet as overtime, or am I expected to cut out at 3 p.m. on Friday so I don't go over my scheduled 40 hours? My manager's eyes bugged out like she never once expected me to demand payment for dictating how I spend my time outside of the office. I just stood there waiting to see if I was going to be making extra money or getting an early start to the weekend. Suddenly, the 15-minute highlight reel during regular paid office hours was good enough. Funny how that works, eh? Let me ask you guys something. If you have to go home after work and brush up on something that you personally enjoy doing or watching for about an hour so that you can involve it in your work the next day, do you think that you should be paid for that? Let me know in the comments down below. This next story is by Yuki1999. Won't let me delay my speech because I'm ill? No problem. Another post reminded me of this story, and to this day, I still regret not reporting my professor for this. A few years ago, in my second year of college, I took a speech class that was required to graduate. Before this incident, I had no problems with the professor. I had the highest grade in the class and all my conversations with her had been pleasant. Then Thanksgiving break happens. I leave to go home for the week and come down with a nasty illness. I was later diagnosed with a sinus infection, an ear infection, and bronchitis all at the same time. Don't want to give details, but it was bad. Knowing that I had to give my final speech for this class on the Tuesday after break, I emailed my professor explaining just how ill I was and asked if I could give my speech on Thursday instead of Tuesday. Half the class was going on Tuesday, the other on Thursday, so I figured that this wouldn't be a problem. The professor emails back and says that I have two options: show up to class sick on Tuesday and give my speech as I am, or go to the doctor on Tuesday, get a doctor's note, then do my speech on Thursday. But if I did the second option, my grade would be deducted for missing class, as well as she would give me a maximum of a B for my speech instead of an A. Based on the language of her email, she clearly expected me to go to the doctor and miss class, dropping my grade. Cue the malicious compliance. Tuesday rolls around and I show up to class in my full business attire, but with the addition of tissues, cough drops, and a plastic bag. I get up to give my speech and my illness is in full swing. I could tell that she looked disgusted and at this point clearly regretted telling me that I had to come to class. She very clearly did not think I was as sick as I was and thought that I was just looking to BS her way to get an extension. This professor was certainly proved wrong that day. After class gets out, I finally go to the doctor, learn that I have the trifecta, sinus infection, ear infection, and bronchitis, get scolded by the doctor for going to class the day before, and get told not to attend class for the rest of the week. Professor ended up giving me an A on the assignment and never gave me any trouble about late assignments because of my illness for the rest of the semester. You don't know how bad I wanted to hear that OP just went off to the side and talked to the professor and said, "This is what you wanted? You wanted me to come in like this?" Or something at the end of the speech that was like, "Thank you for listening, and I'd like to thank Professor so-and-so for giving me the courage to come in today even though I'm sick, because otherwise they would have dropped my grade if I went and got a doctor's note." Something that just calls them out and makes the professor feel like absolute crap right there in front of everybody, because they deserve it. Our next story is by Barbecue and Heck. I should let my wet t-shirt dry on chair because I'm 5 minutes late? Okay, have fun with HR. I was lurking in the sub and a couple of stories reminded me of a malicious compliance I witnessed. A little background: back in 2017, I was working on a call center for a telecommunications company. I was almost 3 years there, and the job had gone from okay to okay-ish to crappy in 6 months. The company did a lot of things that pissed most of us and led to a few malicious compliances and revenges. In 6 months, we had 4 different managers and 10 shift managers. The second to last before I bolted, and one of the protagonists of the story was a real piece of crap. He was a racist, misogynistic, homophobic tyrant with a big ego. Let's call him Kevin. He was the kind of manager that would try to micromanage your call log. How many incoming and outcalling you had, how many customer support, how many sales. And if you didn't hit your dailies, would shout at you. If you were late, you would have to work the same amount, and if it was more than 10 minutes, would dock an hour of your pay. The other protagonist and malicious complier was Mary. Mary was a good-looking woman in her late 30s, with 20 years of experience in call centers and a no-nonsense attitude. As you may understand, Mary and Kevin didn't like each other very much, but the incident that got the ball rolling happened on Pride Week. Mary was wearing a pride shirt in support of her lesbian daughter. Kevin said a few sexist and homophobic things, and they almost came to physical blows. HR intervened, but that seemed to galvanize Kevin, and after that day, he tried to make her life difficult every day. The incident: 7 to 15 on a Friday of early July. The weather was good until 11:30 when it suddenly darkened and a heavy rain started falling. As the second shift, 12 to 20, started coming in, we noticed most of them were running a bit late. Heavy rain interfered with traffic, and wet to the bone. Most of them did a beeline to the bathroom to try and dry themselves with paper towels. Mary steps in at 12:05 looking like a drowned rat and starts to go to the bathroom to dry herself. Kevin notices her and stops her. The following very loud, almost shouting conversation followed. Kevin says, "Where do you think you're going?" Mary says, "To the bathroom to dry my t-shirt." "You're late. You can go to the bathroom during your break." "I'm soaking wet. I don't want to work with a wet shirt. I need to dry it down." "I don't give a crap. You're late. You have to start working." "But my shirt." "I do not care. You are late. You can let it dry on the chair while working." Cue malicious compliance. While most of us were a bit stunned by the whole exchange, Mary walks purposefully to her station, fires up the app, and removes her t-shirt and puts it on the back of the chair to dry. Now, Mary is a well-endowed woman, and sitting there, wearing only her bra, is attracting a lot of attention. She had calmly put her headset on and already doing a call to HR. Kevin, being Kevin, is the last one to notice a half-naked woman making calls. He goes and stands menacingly behind her. "What the freak do you think you're doing?" Mary, on the phone, "I did exactly what he told me. No, I don't feel comfortable at all." "Answer me, you witch!" Did I mention his lovely personality? And pulls her headset off, unplugging in the process. The phones we used had a quirk that if the headset unplugs, it turns the speaker on. Unknown voice says, "Did he just call you a witch?" Mary says, "Yes, he did." Kevin says, "Who the freak are you?" Unknown voice on speaker, "HR. We'll be there in a few minutes." Kevin lost all his color as the speaker hangs up. In about 10 minutes, HR had arrived to find a properly cowed Kevin, Mary covering her legs with a beach towel, courtesy of a colleague who planned to visit the beach after the shift, and wearing a Man-O-War t-shirt while her own was still on the back of her chair, and a half-naked me. I provided the t-shirt. The aftermath. Before HR arrived, Mary had made one more call to the union. After interviewing everybody, Mary and Kevin were allowed to go home. Kevin was fired after 2 days. The delay outraged the union, who caused a fuss, and the next time something happened, they came down like a megaton of bricks on the company. Mary had collected evidence, including this one, and when the company tried to fire her, she sued and won a nice settlement. Yeah, Kevin sounds about as bad as a manager as you can get. Not only were they belligerent, but imagine in any situation telling a woman that they can take their shirt off and dry on the back of the chair during work. Did they not have common sense? Did they not think logically through what they were saying, what they were demanding? Although it took 2 days, I'm glad he got fired. And our final story of the day is by Rock Machine, "No overtime and report actual time worked. Regional manager steps on my toes." Many years ago, I was managing a company that was part of a national chain. We served customers all over the world with internet, phone, and we also had a high volume of walk-in customers on site. My regional manager made it clear to me that I was not to authorize any overtime. If a customer walked in or called in a few minutes before closing and would require an employee to work over 30 to 60 minutes to service the customer and make a sale, I would allow them to come in late the next day by the 30 or 60 minutes they had worked over the night before. I balanced the time every week with no overtime and reported regular hours on payroll. We were working a bi-monthly pay period. One day when I was off, the regional manager paid a surprise visit to the site I was managing. He had a meeting with all the employees in my absence and read them the Riot Act and demanded that all of them must report promptly in the morning at the start of their shift and leave in the same manner at the end of the shift, and they must report actual times on the handwritten time cards to the minute. My team reports this to me the following day, and we comply. We rack up a bunch of overtime over the next 2 weeks, with those that got caught up servicing customers at the end of the day after hours. After submitting the timesheets, the regional manager calls me and goes off on me about the overtime. It went like this. "What the heck is going on over there? I told you no overtime. This is unacceptable. I didn't authorize this. Did you visit my facility and have a meeting with my staff in my absence and demand that actual times must be reported and they have to be punctual and leave promptly?" "Yes, I did. I have been managing this by allowing people to work late and come in late to eliminate overtime and make sales. We close at 5. We expect a sales rep to answer the phone at 4:59, work with the customer, and make a sale. If a customer walks in at 4:59, we expect a sales rep to work with the customer and make a sale. This could take 15 minutes to an hour. I appreciate my staff doing this to service the customer, and we are now complying with your new rule to report actual times. You really shook up my staff on your last visit, and I cannot manage this anymore. Forget we had this conversation and go back to what you were doing. This is definitely a case of don't fix something that isn't broken. Just because you're higher up on the food chain and you look down at this facility and you look at their numbers and you don't understand. Why isn't this meeting what expectations you have, which is people are not coming in at the expected time? You don't just barge down in there and start demanding things. You talk to the person in charge of the facility, you figure out why people aren't coming in on time, and surprise, you wouldn't have messed anything up doing that. But no, you gotta be authoritarian and demand stuff and just drill fear into all these poor workers. Well, at least they got some overtime out of it. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.